Hey everyone, it's me, Master Walrus 9, and I'm here to talk about one of my favorite games I've been playing recently called Union Arena. So, first, this is going to be a bit of a bigger video, so I'm going to talk about the order of events I'm going to be going over. We're going to talk about rules, go to deck building, look at some set information. We're going to go to combat tactics, unique gimmicks or what kind of sets it apart. We're going to talk about rarity. We're going to talk about sets in America, both the current and the plan for release. The sim, because there is an online sim. We're going to talk about that real quick. And the Bandai TCG Plus. So, let's start it off. First off, yes, this is a completely blurry photo that's hard to understand. You're going to get a rule guide if you ever buy a starter deck or search online. You'll be able to find a rule guide like this that gives you a basic sense of the play. And while it's nice to have and good for reference, you're not going to fully need it, especially after this video. So first off, we're going to take a look at card anatomy, and there might be some visual spoilers for some shows you might be interested in, so just a little bit fair warning. I'm going to be talking more so on Black Clover as the main set, but there's some other features such as JJK and Hunter x Hunter and Bleach. So, first off, card anatomy. You have your left side and your right side of your card. On the left side, you have the energy cost and the action cost. So at the very top, you're going to need that much energy generation and that much color in order to play it. You have the action cost, which means that you're going to have to rest an action card in order to play it. And we'll go into a detailed breakdown of what action and energy and all of these are. Card type. So you're going to see that there's the card type right here. There's 4 different types of cards, and we'll talk about that next. The effect will be placed right here in a text box. The battle points or BP is in the bottom left of the screen or the card. On the top, you have the name of the character. This one is Mimosa Vermilion. If you ever need to target a card called Mimosa Vermilion, this is where you determine if you target it. Underneath, you'll have the tag. Tags aren't always going to be something that a card has, but this is a case where it does. The tag for this Mimosa is Golden Dawn. So if you have a card that targets a Golden Dawn card, there you go. The trigger effect. The trigger comes into effect if we take damage, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more, and energy generation in the bottom right. There's guides online if you need to ever reference the card, but most of it's self-explanatory. Card types are broken into one of the 4 followings as of now. They could potentially add another, but I don't see it occurring at this point in time. First, you have your character card types. Then you have your sites. Sites are like characters because they have effects, they have energy generation, they stay on the field, but they do not have battle power BP, which means that they can't be used for combat or for defense. They're used for effects. You have event cards, which are kind of like your spell cards. Or, yeah, I guess spell cards is the best approach for that. You use them and then you discard them right after, often having more powerful effects than characters or sites because of the one-off cost. And then you have, but you can't use them for energy generation. Then you have your action points. Action points are a second form of energy that we'll talk about real quick. They are included in the deck, but they are also not counted towards it. And we'll talk about that in deck building. So here I have a demonstration of the field. This is based off a simplistic approach. You can, of course, modify some stuff as you go, but you're generally going to want to follow this idea: a front line, back line or energy line, and the AP area. You're going to want to have a deck area, a sideline, and a removal, as well as your life cards. So starting off is your life. You start with 7 life in the game, and you lose when your life gets to 0. Not when you take damage as 0. As soon as it gets to 0, you lose. When you take damage, your life is going to go into the sideline and not your hand. But before that, you're going to look and see if there's a trigger effect and choose if you want to activate it or not. Then finally, the life is what is targeted when your opponent attacks. And we'll talk about that in the attack phase. But essentially, in your 7 life, your opponent can choose which one they want to target. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, your opponent could choose to target 1, the top card, or you could choose to target the bottom card 4, or you could target 3 or 2. Next, you have the AP zone. AP are your action points. It is your second form of energy for the turn. This limits your card playing potential. It makes the energy a bit more free, and we'll talk about that again in a second, but your AP is going to limit how much you can do your turn. So, the AP is turned up at the start of the turn, flipped over face up. If you are first, then you're going to go into sequence of 1, 2, 3. And if you're second, you're going to go into sequence of 2, 2, 3. So your opponent's going to be able to activate more effects sooner, but because of that, the second player is going to be given the benefit of having a second AP during your first turn. So you have a lot of considerations for if you want to go first or if you want to go second. This is one of the determining factors. Next is the energy line. Cards need to have an energy cost paid for if they want to be played. So if you want to generate that energy, you have to put cards into the energy line. Cards in the energy line cannot attack and they cannot block. Cards that are played into the energy line come into play rested, but resting does not affect the energy generation. You also are limited to 4 cards in your energy line. As soon as you play a 5th, you're going to have to remove one of them. The front line is where you deal with combat and defense. You can attack and you can block while they're on the front line, but you are unable to generate energy. You are also limited to 4 if you get rid of a card from playing another one. You play 5th, you're gonna have to side the line, or you're gonna have to remove one of them. And then finally, you have your deck, your sideline, and your removal. You're gonna start with 50 cards in your deck. You're gonna draw, and you're gonna draw your opening hand, and you're gonna set up your life. You're gonna be at 36 cards. Cards on the field that are destroyed or played from hand, like events, or hit from the life go into the sideline unless otherwise said. Cards targeted by effects that send them to removal get sent to removal. And if a field is full and you play an extra card to said field, you have to choose one of the cards on that field and send it to removal. It does not get sidelined. If you play a 5th while you're loaded up, you have to choose one of those 5, send them to the removal. Your sideline is essentially your trash. Your removal is your banish zone. I don't know why they call it these different things. There's probably a trademark on each term for each game, but that's just how it is. You have your trash, which is your sideline. You have your removal, which is your banish. So after understanding the field, you need to understand the phases. Phase 0 is opening the game, starting the game. First, you're going to need to determine who goes first. A lot of people like to do die roll, roll for higher. Sometimes people roll for lower, etc., etc. You can do rock, paper, scissors. You can do a coin flip. Just determine who's going to go first and make sure it's fair. Second, you're going to draw 7 cards. Then you're going to choose to keep those cards, or you're going to choose to mulligan those cards. And then third, after you draw your hand, you're going to take the next 7 cards off the top of your deck and set them up in your life. Do note, mulligans are a little bit interesting. If you choose to mulligan, you are going to put your hand on the bottom, draw 7, shuffle, and then do your life. This ensures that the cards in your hand are not put into your new hand. It can be really good or it can be really bad. It makes the aspect of the mulligan a lot more interesting. phase 1 is your start phase. First thing you're going to do is unrest all your characters and unrest all your AP. Second, you're going to add to your AP if possible. So again, first is 1, 2, 3, and second player is 2, 2, 3. Third, you're going to draw a card. Here you have what we call the AP draw, which is a very unique mechanic of the game that I enjoy. You can tap an AP, you can rest an AP, and you can draw an extra card. If you're ever low on cards in the hand, you don't have many options, you need that extra card draw, the AP draw is an option to get rid of your negative experience. You can only AP draw once a turn. It is also important to note, first player first turn does not draw. Second player first turn will draw. First player second turn will draw. Second, so on and so forth. You'll draw each turn, but you can also AP draw. And the fourth part, and some people consider movement to be its own phase, I throw it in here, is movement. You have the energy zone and you have the front line. You can take cards from your energy line and move them up to the front line. You're going to lose out on energy generation, but you have someone who can attack and you have someone who can block. It's important to note that cards come in tapped. So if a card comes in tapped, it tends to be better to put into the energy line if you don't intend to attack or block with it. Also important, during the unrest phase, you unrest your characters and your opponent arrests their characters, which means that you are going to have options to block after you attack. So you can attack with all your guys, then you end your turn and you unrest them. You don't unrest your AP, you just unrest your characters. Move into your main phase. Main phase is all about playing cards. You can play sites, you can play characters, and you can play events. Sites have to be played into energy, characters are going to be played into the energy or field, and events are going to be played and put into the sideline. All cards technically come into play rested, which means they can't attack, but they can block as soon as the turn ends. When you play cards, you need to make sure you have enough energy generation, and you need to make sure that you have the AP available to play that card. We'll talk a bit more about understanding your energy gen and your AP in the sequencing portion of combat later. Also in main phase, you're going to activate any effects that say activate main. As long as you can hit the other conditions, you can activate them. Doesn't matter if they're played that turn or not. Phase 3 is the combat phase. So in combat, you're going to pick out which cards you want to use for attacking, and then you're going to target the life of your opponent, 1 through 7. Then your opponent can declare if they want to block. If they block, they choose their card and rest it. Next, if a character is blocked, then you are going to do a combat check. If your battle points in the bottom left is greater than or equal to your opponent's battle points, then you kill your opponent. You send them to the sideline. But if your battle points are less than your opponent's battle points, then you are both going to survive. Your card is not destroyed, your opponent's not destroyed, but both end up blocked. If you end up unblocked, then you're going to flip over the life that you targeted. Flipping over the life, you check for a trigger, then you choose to activate it, and if you do not wish to activate it, or you do activate the trigger and it doesn't put in your hand, you're going to put it into the sideline. Finally, notice all of your untapped cards can attack. If you no longer wish to attack, you move on to the next phase, which is the end phase. Also important to note, blocking is going to prevent damage from occurring. So you might be a 4K and you might have your opponent, which has just a single 500 person. They might block it or they might not. Being a single 500 person, it doesn't have much value, so they're probably going to block it so they don't take the damage. At the end phase, which is your phase 4, any effects that happen at the end phase are going to happen. Then you pass your turn over to your opponent, and they're going to enter that sequence of start, main, combat, and end. So now we're going to talk about decks. Decks have the following criteria. First off, decks have to be 50 cards. You can't do 49, you can't do 51, exactly 50. Second, cards must all be from the same source, the same IP. So if I'm playing a Bleach deck, I must play with only Bleach cards. I cannot throw in Hunter x Hunter. I cannot throw in Black Clover. You can have no more than 4 copies of any card with the same number. You can have the same name. You cannot have the same number. And finally, cards with special triggers, like special, color, or final, are limited to 4. These are very powerful triggers that you don't want as much as possible, or you don't want to have too many in the deck because then it becomes overpowered. So that's for balancing. Then finally, you have 3 AP cards that you start off on the side of the field in the AP zone face down. So here I show 3 cards from Bleach. I chose Bleach for this because of the different card types. You have UE01ST, BLC1 number 35, Orihime Inoue. This card has the ST, which denotes that it's from the starter deck, but it's from BLC Bleach set 1, or the first release set in the US. Here is UE1BT BLC Kiryu Hikifune. The UE01 BT means that it's from the first booster box. However, it's still BLC1, meaning that these 2 deck cards are compatible in the same deck. Third, you have Orihime Inoue. This one is from UEX01BT BLC1 number 36. This is from a volume 2 set. So I'll talk a little bit about it later, but Union Arena will release volume 2s, which essentially are updated sets to pre-existing IPs. You'll get some bonus options for the deck you want to play, as well as some new deck options. All of these cards have BLC1, which means that they're Bleach compatible. They have different starting codes, ST, BT, and XBT, but now you have different information, yet similar compatibility. Important to note, based off the rules of the games, you could run 4 of this Asta right here, which is Black Clover 1 volume or card number 2. If I run 4 of this card, I am unable to run a 5th copy of this card. But I can run a copy of this Asta. His name is Asta, he's Black Pulse, and he's purple, but his code is 003 from the Black Clover booster set. Ooh. Words are tough at that, sorry. So I can run these 4, and then I can run this card. In all technicality, I can also run this Asta because his code is different. The game is not color locked. However, it is very ill-advised. Cards need energy to be played. For example, Asta needs 0 purple energy, Asta needs 2 purple energy, and this Asta needs 0 red energy. Cards also generate energy. 1 purple, 1 purple, 1 purple. So, if I was to have this purple Asta and this red Asta on my energy line, I could not play this purple Asta because he requires 2 purple energy. At this point in time, I'm playing 1 purple, 1 red. In playing multicolors, you're going to heavily limit your deck, and so it's recommended that you only play single colors. Could you? Yes. Should you? No. Here we're going to talk a little bit about some of the activations. So, card effects can take effect when played, when sidelined, when you attack, when you block, during your turn, or during your opponent's turn. If none of these are said, then it is always active. These happen as soon as it occurs. There's also some conditions. If on the front line, so it must be in the front line for it to happen, or if on energy line. Switch to resting means you have to rest it, you have to turn it sideways. Place one card from hand into sideline. Pay 1 AP. Sideline this card for once per turn. These key triggers are, or these key conditions are very much a denotement of the activation conditions and are fairly simple. They're straightforward. Switch to resting as long as you know what resting is, which everyone should. Once you get familiar with the game after playing a single game, you're going to know what to do when you see that. Here's some keyword abilities. Cards can have these effects on them. Step. So during the movement phase, you're able to move from the front line back to the energy line. This happens simultaneously with any movements you're doing. Normally, characters can't do that, but Step allows it to occur. Snipe means you can target a character on your opponent's front line and attack it. You're normally unable to attack your opponent's frontline characters. You can only attack their life. But with Snipe, you're able to do that. Double attack. That means that when you attack, you're going to untap it. Now, there's no reason to not attack second time unless you know you're going to lose that fight. Double block means when you block, you can untap it. There's no reason to not block a second time unless you want the card to live and you know you're going to lose that fight. Impact. When you attack and your opponent blocks, if you win the battle, then you still deal the damage. Impact +1 adds more to the effect of the impact, as well as gives impact if it doesn't have impact. So impact's very important in a keyword because you are able to threaten and deal damage. If you have impact, your opponent's going to be less likely to block because you're going to deal the damage regardless. Damage 2 means that you're going to pick 2 cards from your opponent's life when you deal damage instead of 1. It does not pair with impact because you can have a card with damage 7 and impact 3. Those are 2 different effects. If you go in unblocked, you're going to deal 7 damage. But if you do get blocked, you're only going to deal 3 damage. Damage +1 is going to add to that. And finally, nullify impact. This is going to make a character lose impact. So that's very good defensively. As you play the game, you're going to get familiar with these keywords. Here, I'm going to showcase the triggers. This isn't the prettiest sight, but it is what I could do. So here I chose purple cards from Black Clover to showcase the different triggers. And there's about 7 of them. They could add more later, but this is from what I noticed the consistencies. First trigger to note is active. Choose one character on your field and switch to active, then give it 3000 BP until the end of the turn. This is going to be cards defensive. Giving +3k BP means it's going to live most combats, and switching to active means you get another chance to block with it. Get means to add this card to your hand. Versus draw, which means draw a card. Again, when you take damage, your life is normally going to go to the sideline. If you have a get, you get to add it to your hand. If you have a draw, you can still put it in the sideline, but then you can draw a card. Raid. Add the card to your hand, or you can raid with it. And we'll talk a bit more about raids in a little bit, but raid is a trigger which occurs on any character with the raid effect. Here we have our super limited ones. Final. If you have 0 life when this trigger occurs, place the top card of your deck into your life area. So it gives you one more chance, but it has to be the last card. Color. These can have different effects based off of the color and the archetype. So this colors play 1 purple character with a cost of 2 energy or less and the AP of 1 from your sideline set active to your front line. So the color effects can be different based off of the color. You can have sideline opponents' characters, give yourself a defensive buff, or play a character. Finally, special. Choose one character on your opponent's front line and sideline it. It's got to be front line, but this is a very powerful effect, being able to take out one of your opponent's offensive characters. Consistently, you're going to find your final cards on your AP restands. So most colors will have an archetype for AP restand. Pain AP, choose 2 of your AP and switch them to active. Your specials are going to be often on your event removal cards. So choose one of your opponent's characters on the front line. It loses 1000 BP for each Black Bulls this turn. Sometimes they'll be 3k, and if you have a certain character, make it 5k or 4k, etc., etc. The big concept is this is AP restand, which will tend to have final, and this is removal, which will tend to have special. So it's a semi-balanced way to get the card's effect without having the card in your hand. Colors tend to be on a more powerful rare card that you're going to want in your deck. You're going to want to be able to play. But if you're unable to play it, you're still going to be able to get a semi-similar effect. Because if you think about it, this is quite similar. Play a card from your sideline or hand that has 2 or less energy required and 1 AP cost. So this is a quite similar effect. Very powerful. I'm going to go on. Raiding. So certain cards have the raid effect. Raid has you put a card on top of another card that is of the same name. So Asta is going to be able to raid on a card that's called Asta, or this card that's called Asta. You cannot raid on this Gauche because Gauche is not Asta. The raided card is considered a new character for the purpose of effects. The raided card on play effects will only take effect if you raid it. So if you just hard play the card from hand, which you can do, you're not going to get the effects you play or the on play effects. When the card is beat, both cards are going to go to the sideline. And then finally, only the top card is going to have the effects. When you raid, the card is going to be set as active if not already active. When you hard play it, the card will come in rested, but raiding will set it to active. Then you can choose to move it to the front line if it's on the energy line. You do not have to do that, but you can. So with that understanding of the different aspects of the cards and building your card deck, we'll get into that. Second, here's colors. So Union Arena has 5 colors. Purple, from what I've noticed, is colors of trash, field, and group. That have certain field mechanics, interact a lot with your trash, or have certain cards in your trash, or have a certain group built. For example, all cards that target Black Bulls. Green is about cost. You're going to look at your high-end costs, playing 6 costs, 7 costs, 8 costs, up to 15 costs. You're going to have specific costs. So, for example, you have stuff that targets cards that are 3 costs. And you're going to have switch to aggro. Switch this card to active so you can attack with that turn. Red tends to be BP boost. Give this card more BP, more battle power. You're going to have aggro in your red, as in most card games. And it's going to be event heavier. So, blue, bounce, draw, defense. Yellow, BP reduction, active, rest energy, throttle your opponent's options. Well, I'm going to go too heavily into this because the colors are very intertwined. Some mechanics can feel very much more dedicated to certain colors. There's no dedicated lock to colors. JJK has an event-focused deck in blue based off the Sukuna Fingers. Code Geass has the pizza deck in red, which is based off of red pizza cards. or red event pizza cards, and Black Clover has an event-based deck on red, where you get effects when you place cast red cards. One Punch Man has a grouping card, so all Hero Association or whatever, in green, while Black Clover has a Black Bulls purple deck. Ultimately, you're going to have to understand what you like as a play style. They're constantly adding in new play styles, so you're going to have to look at everything, read it, get an understanding, see what other people think about it. Yeah, you're not going to be color locked unlike in some games, because there's much more variety. When you're building a deck, you need to understand a few things. First off, know what your deck wants. You're going to want to understand that this is an event-based deck, so you're going to want to play powerful events so you can have them in the trash and get the effects for playing them. Because this Noel and this Noel get extra effects if you play an event this turn. This event card targets Noels. The Mimosa helps replace events. Same thing with the Laura Pocheca. Raid is huge and consistency is king. These are two very important aspects. Most of your decks you're going to see and play against are going to be based off of Raid. Now, you could potentially do some limited formats where you don't have access to that, like commons only or whatever. But Raid is big. You want to raid. And so, since this Noel can raid on any card called Noel, then you're going to want to play a good amount of Noels. In this deck, I have 0-drop Noels, 1-drop Noels, 2-drop Noels, 3-drop Noels, because they offer raid targets to my Noel, and you have multiple aspects of effects that hit each other and meld well. Same thing with this Mimosa. I have 0-drop, 1-drop, and 3-drop. You're going to want to follow one curve. Wasting your AP is not advised, so you're going to want to figure out how to maximize your AP usage while understanding your energy cost and your energy generation. You're going to want a few zero costs. If you cannot start the game by having enough zero costs, then you are going to lose. Rule of thumb, absolutely minimum 10. Some decks need different amounts, granted, but you're going to want around 10. Here I have 12 zero costs. You're also going to want a couple of double costs because you're going to want to understand your high end. My high end is the 5-cost Noel raid, which means that if I want to play this, I have to have 5 energy generation. Since the field is limited to 4, that means I have to have a double. Okay, what are my doubles? I have this Mimosa, and this Noel. Running about 8 because I only need the 5-drop Noel to have that. But if I'm running a high-end deck that's running 8 drops or 9 drops or whatever, I need to understand the energy generation. Don't waste space. Yes, I can include the Asta into this deck, but does it really meld well with the style? If I understand it, sure. But if it's really not doing well, why waste the space? Tech options are a bit more limited because you are looking at general removal. Finally, 4 counts of the final, 4 counts of the special, 4 counts of the color. These are going to occur naturally because these are your high-end power cards. Valkyrie Armor is the key of this deck. You're always going to run your AP regens. And this Noel has the color trigger just built in, while being a huge target because I want to raid on Noel. Have these because they're powerful. The fact that they limit them is a showcase to the power. Of course, understand your deck. Know what your deck wants. These are guidelines, but not absolutes. If you need to run more zero cost or less zero cost than 10, trust in your deck. If you're not playing high end, then do you really need those 2 drops if they're not hitting your goals? Understand your deck. Again, and that's only going to come from play. You need to play and play and play. Other people play it yourself. Yeah. Now, when you're looking at your sets, you're gonna see an average of 6 playstyles. Sets will come into 3 colors. So Black Clover, you're looking at red, you're looking at purple, you're looking at green. You're gonna look at about 2 archetypes per color. So in red, you have Noelle, and red, you have Asta. Purple, you have the Devil Triad, and purple, you have Black Bulls. Green, you have the guild leaders, and green, you have Yuno. These archetypes also hit different conditions. Noelle is about events. Asta is about putting cards underneath and trashing those cards underneath to, get bonus effects. Devil Triad is about running out or milling yourself. Black Bulls is about group or have enough Black Bulls on the field to activate more effects. Your green leaders is about high-end energy cost, and your Yuno is about setting up characters with free energy cost. So you have 6 different playstyles to play. You're not going to really color blend, so you get a good understanding. This limits your options, but it makes it straightforward with very small tech chases. Do I run the 2-drop? Do I run the energy destruction? Do I run the bonus, etc., etc.? You're looking at around 90 cards a set. Think about it, around 15-ish dedicated cards per archetype, 2 archetypes per color. That's 30 cards, and then 3 colors per set. You're looking around 90 to 100. So now we're going to talk a little bit about sequencing. Let's assume your field has 2 Charmies on the energy line, nothing on the front line, and 3 action points ready. Then in your hand, you have 2 AP restands, 1 Vanessa with an action cost of 2, 1 of your Raid Astas, 1 Black Bulls event card, and 1 0-drop Asta. Let's look at a poor example of a sequence. The poor example would be play Asta to your energy line, and then Vanessa to your energy or your active line. Yes, you've used all 3 action points, but also look at the cards you have in hand. You still have these 2 AP restands, you have the potential for a raid because of the Asta here, and then you have the Black Bulls event card. A decent effect would be to play Asta, then play your AP restand. So you go from 2 back to 3. Play your Vanessa to your energy line because she's going to generate 1 energy. You're left at 1. AP restand, you're going back to 2. Then you raid on your Asta. What do you get out of this? You get an attacker. You got a potential defender, Vanessa, but I wouldn't really go with that because you want to play to your energy line. You got an attacker, which you can deal some damage with. But you're also losing out on the event, and you have an AP available. Your prime effect is going to be Asta, limit, Vanessa, limit, do the event, and then do the Asta. Great. Because here's what's going to happen. You play to Asta, go to 3. Surpass, go back to 3 AP. Play to Vanessa, go to 4 energy generation. You've used your 2, you have 1 left, but you play this, boom, boom. You play your Black Bulls effect because you have 4 energy generation. And you've got 4 cards, so you can hit a 4K. Now you raid, which means you move it up. You're going to go down to 3 energy generation, and you're going to have an attacker. So you've done a removal, and you've got an attacker going in. Maximize your cards. You maximize the effects. You've applied your removal. This is your prime sequence. Understand that different field states and scenarios require different understandings of what to play in sequencing. So it's up to you as the pilot of the deck to know when to do that and what to do. Some other important info. You're going to want to attack high to low. Your cards are going to want to go from your highest strength, 4K, into your lower strengths, 3K. And you're going to want to defend sooner than later. If you have 1 defense that you can guarantee to block, like a 3K, and they have just 3 copies of 1K, you're going to want to block sooner. This is because of cards like Asta and Black Bulls. Asta has the active trigger, which means you get to restand your card and give it plus 3k, which means that you have an opportunity to defend again, and you have the opportunity to block higher, which makes attacking a bit tougher, because if you attack higher, you're able to get the effects more often. Specials also make it tougher. So if you have a 4/3/2 and your opponent has a 3/3/3, if you hit the special with your 2k block and they choose to let it go for some reason, they're gonna KO your 4k. All I'm saying is attack high to low. It's hard to bluff attack phases because there's not a lot of interaction you can do, so it's very straightforward. Important note, there's no next turn if you lose. As soon as you get to 0 life, you're done so consider that when you are switching your movements, and consider that when you're playing cards into certain zones. You need to survive. You need to balance your field and energy. If you don't have enough energy, you can't play your high-end cards to the attacking zone. But if you play it all into the attacking zone, then you don't have the energy to play your higher-end cards. Understanding your odds is also important. Understanding the chance of getting a certain effect from your sideline, the chance of drawing a certain card, or what's the chance that if I do this, what's the factors he's going to do that's going to happen. Life loss. My rule for life loss is 2/2/2 CCC, 2/2 CCC. You can be a bit careless on your 6 to 7 lives. Feel free to take that as damage. Cautious, so read the situation. You don't want to lose too much, but 5 and 4 is very situational. And finally, you want to be critical on your 3, 2, and 1 lives. I consider this 2 because once you lose your last life, which is the 1, then you're kind of lost unless it's a final trigger. So again, be careless on 7 to 6. You be cautious on 5 to 4. Be critical. If your opponent builds up a big enough board state, they're going to be able to swing up to 5 life a turn. And that's not applying for double damage. Here's some other pieces of rules from the official rulebook. Activating abilities simultaneously, you choose the order in which they resolve. When your BP becomes 0, then the character is sidelined. It's considered deleted. When a rated character on the field moves to the destination other to the field, you get placed the underlying cards on your sideline. Sidelining is moving it to the trash. And you have effect substitution. You can feel free to read these. I'm not gonna go too much into it. What makes Union Arena unique compared to other IPs? One Piece, Dragon Ball, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Well, first off, the mixed IP combat makes this very much more interesting and much more appealing. I can play my Black Clover deck and my opponent can play his Bleach deck, and we're both fans of our respective series, and we can enjoy that. It's the same game, but separate IPs that we enjoy. The dual energy system is very unique. Having the action points limits your turns, but the energy costs listing your options for play. So there's a big balance there. It's really nice for casual scenes, but you do have competitive applications. They do have worlds and stuff like that, but it's really nice to build a deck and go to locals and enjoy it. The nice aspect about that is that IP is blocked. My Black Clover is only ever going to play with my Black Clover decks. So, since that's the case, I don't have to invest into the new sets each year. I don't have to buy Bleach. I can look at it if I want to, but I don't have to buy it, which makes it cheaper and it makes it simpler. And me having my Black Clover deck, I can always play my Black Clover deck in most events. Might not be the best deck, but if I'm at a local scene, a bit more casual, then I can have some fun with that as long as I built it well. The ability to untap each turn promotes an offensive gameplay. You don't have to consider the applications of not attacking in order to block. If you have the opportunity, take the attack. There's no penalties for attacking. And there's skill requirements, but there's still luck in the game, which keeps it up in the air. You can hit into a special and lose your cards, or you can get through really quickly. It keeps games feeling fresh and new. Ultimately, this makes it a simpler game, but simple's not bad. You don't need to have 5,000 complex combos in order to turn to your opponent. Having a simpler game means it's more accessible, it's more casual, and it's more fun. And ultimately, when it comes to the idea of card games, that's what we want. We want to play with our friends, and we want to have fun. We want to share our love of a subject with a community. IP mixing works with that. I can get interested into Union Arena because I loved Black Clover as an anime, and I can meet some really cool people because they got interested in Union Arena because they got into JJK. Cardboard Kitsune. So this is a web client that is used as a simulator. It's made by a single person, which I believe his name is Necrospark. You can find information on the Discord. Client is really straightforward to use once you understand it. There's a lot of stuff and it's not fully automated, but it's really good if you want to try decks and play decks. The biggest limiting feature is that it's not too much known about, and Union Arena is a little bit smaller of a card game compared to others, so there's not as many people always. But you're always able to find a game if you just give the time. It is in beta. It is developing a lot now, so there are bugs. But again, the creator is working a lot of his own time to fix those bugs. It's really nice. You have your open lobbies, like your Swag Lords lobby. You got casual, ranked, and then casual for Asia. So if you want to play the Asian cards and see the sets before they get released, you're there. Then you have a deck builder. Deck builder is really nice. You're able to select your format, either North America or Asia. You're able to select your series. So North America, we'll talk about the series that are available yet, but I can pick Black Clover. I can pick my card type, character, site, event, AP. I can pick a color. Purple, green, and red are my available ones. I can look at battle points. I can look at affinities or the archetypes. I can choose energy generation. I can sort by factors. I can save my decks, and I can play them online. So it's really good for looking at cards and theory crafting deck builds at the very minimum, but then you have the option to play, which is really nice. So now we're going to take a look at some of the sets that have been released at this current point in time. I'm just going to go over the series, but you have some side information such as what they released and then if they have packs or not. So Bleach and Hunter x Hunter were sets 1 and 2 respectively, with JJK being the third set. Code Geass was the 4th set to be launched in the US, but there was no starter deck for that set. Union Arena set 5 was Demon Slayer. Set 6 was One Punch Man, which is actually interesting because that was the first universal release. All the other sets had came out way prior because Union Arena has been up for about 2 years in Japan. The One Punch Man was released on February 28th in Japan as well as in the US. Starter deck 7 was not Black Clover, it was Sword Art Online. See a person with sword, you gotta get a little confused. Starter deck 8 was Black Clover, and booster set, like the expanded set, volume 2, that's the term. Volume 2 for Bleach was the first volume 2 that they dropped. They then dropped volume 2 for Union Arena JJK. And then finally, the most recent set at the time of recording is Full Metal Alchemist. So looking at what's to be expected for set releases, next up is supposed to be Attack on Titan, followed by Code Geass Volume 2. Runeterra Kenshin is next, followed by Volume 2 for Hunter x Hunter. Then we're going to be looking at Kaiju number 8 as a set release, but there's going to be no starter deck. No starter deck's going to occur for Yu Yu Hakusho or Nike Goddess of Victory, but you're going to see a Demon Slayer Volume 2. Sword Art Online's going to have Volume 2. There's a theatrical edition for Evangelion, which is going to come with a starter deck. And then Kagura Bachi is going to come with no starter deck. So this is their plans up to February 27th, 2026. Straightforward, a lot of support for old archetypes, which is really nice. A lot of new archetypes, not a ton of starter decks, which is kind of a pain. But honestly, if you look online, you can find a simple archetype and build a starter deck on par deck, following the rules of deck building. Starter decks are MSRP'd for around $12, with packs being around $5 and booster boxes being around $80. That doesn't always happen though, such as the Black Clover deck being around $8, the Black Clover booster pack being around $5.20, and the booster box being around $42.98. So this is from TCG Player. The market's always changing. They were less a little bit ago, and they're going to be more a little bit later. They could be less again. Just knowing the MSRP helps you understand if you're getting a good deal or if you're getting ripped off. Rarities. It's important to understand the rarity options that you have in a game. So in Union Arena, you're looking at 4 primary rarity types: common, uncommon, rare, and super rare. So with these rarity types, you're looking at about 6 commons in a pack, 4 uncommons in a pack, and 2 rares in a pack, for a total of 12 cards in a pack. Now your super rares are going to occur about 1 in 3 packs, where they will replace the second rare with the super rare. Next, you have your alts. It's a shorter game, or smaller sets, so you're looking at about 16 packs in a box, a booster box. And about 1 in each booster box, you can expect a single star. And a single star is your alt arts. In one case, which is 16 boxes, that's a lot, you can expect a double star. Your double star is your signature cards. So you tend to have someone like maybe the voice actor or the artist sign the card. And finally, the rarest is your triple stars, which tend to be this much more gold and black stylistic card. And a lot of times there's could be serializations for first editions of this, which tend to be 1 through 100. You can see that this triple star is about 330, and there's very low listings for this. They come about 1 in 5 cases. So that's very, very unlikely for you to pull that triple star. If you happen to get it, great. Feel so glad for you. That is unironic, because you're looking at 16 times 5 times 16, 1 in that. And times 12, that's 1 in that many cards. Finally, the other type is promotional cards. When you go to local events, you are able to get promotional cards. Participation, there's winner. Yeah, there's pre-release, which can occur at pre-release sets. So the rarity is kind of nice to understand. Ultimately, your cards are going to be placed on all 3 factors of playability, rarity, and collectability. Asta is a very playable card, being one of the top decks for Black Clover. So it's making sense at its price at about $10. The rarity of it being an alt art is going to bump that to $23. So almost doubling the price. And you need these Astas to play, but they're much more common. And ultimately, nice art's nice art. Getting a 1 in 100 signature card is going to send up that price to like 300. Final things I want to say: check out the Bandai website and the Bandai app. You're going to be able to access all of your games there: One Piece, Dragon Ball, Digimon, and Union Arena. You're going to be able to search for local events. You're able to build your deck to register for events. If you ever do want to play for events, you're going to need the app in order to be partnered up with people to play with. So it's really nice to get information about upcoming sets, local events, and general tournaments. Check out the app for that. Play Union Arena because you get accessibility to friends. It's just a fun game, and it's a nice, simple app. They've updated it recently, which is really nice. Ultimately, if you want to learn Union Arena, I recommend trying the tutorial app. You can go through the web browser, search up Union Arena tutorial. You can play it through your browser. The app is going to be superior. It's going to go through the effects of the game, taking you through a few tutorial matches so you can learn the mechanics. You're going to be able to play a few practice matches. You're able to access 4 different decks: Bleach, Hunter x Hunter, JJK, and Code Geass. It's really good to learn because, as always, the best way to learn is to play the game. Watch other people play if you need to, but playing is going to be the best. So I've been Master Walrus. I know this has been a long video and not always the most consistent, but I just wanted to talk about this game that I've been really enjoying recently. As always, I want you to have fun, stay sloppy, and let me know your thoughts and what you want to see. Bye-bye.